Hello everyone, I hope you're taking it easy and your day has been great thus far. For this video we'll be going through an unboxing and review of Warrior Class Elita-1, and this version of Elita is from Transformers Earthspark, and in terms of the figure, released this year being 2023, by Hasbro. At least this version is by Hasbro. I don't know if there's a specific Chikara Tomy version of it. So I started looking at some of these Earthspark figures, starting with the Warrior classes, the previous one being Optimus Prime. So just going through what I have, Elita-1 being this particular video, and then the other Warrior class I have will be Skywar. Once I've done that, I'll have a look at the deluxes, which I think is Bumblebee, Megatron, and I can't remember the third one. It's one of the Terran ones, but anyway. So, front of the packaging, here we have Elita-1, pretty much right there, clear as day. Now, this particular Warrior class line does have this little weapon gimmick. From the Optimus one, it's not automatic. You do have to manually flip up the weapon, but it's actually not too bad. It does look like it's interesting, so it'll be interesting to see how the one for Elita works. Elita overall does look like a okay figure. Prime I was quite pleasantly surprised with. I'm not expecting all of these Warrior classes to be to the same standard, but I have seen worse, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's the front of the packaging. On the back, another shot of Elita in her robot mode as well as her vehicle mode, 15 steps of conversion. Does remind me of the alt mode for what's his name from Transformers Cybertron / Galaxy Force. Would look good in green. Okay, packaging done. Time to get Elita out of the packaging, have a better look, and take things from there. And with Elita out of the packaging, now the good thing about having done Optimus, I am a bit more familiar with the packaging and how it works, so it wasn't packaging manslaughter this time around, which is good. It's actually more cleaner. Elita, which we will come back to in a minute, she feels partly shell-former-ish, but as I said in the Optimus video, Warrior class. Warrior class. We'll come back to you, Elita. Manual. So just the two things in the packaging. So we do have some steps just confirm how to make sure she's correctly transformed out of her packaging, which I think is kind of cool, as well as how the little weapon gimmick works. Once that's done, pretty much going through transformation process. Going through all the 15 steps. Doesn't look too bad. I'm sure some steps will be easier than others, but as I said, Warrior class. Can't expect everything. But 15 steps of transformation isn't too bad. So there we go. Manual. Elita. So, at least standing isn't going to be a problem. Elita from the front. Elita from the side, the back, the other side. It is unfortunate because of this weapon gimmick. The weapons will be quite noticeable in robot mode, and depending on the actual character, could be a little bit oddly placed, which I guess is going to be in the case of Elita because of some of her back pieces, but that's okay. Close-up of Elita's face and upper torso. So in terms of colours, so we do have a bit of pink to go around. We have black for ties, hands, weapons, a little bit of silver for some detailing, a bit of yellow, blue for the eyes, and the main colour is, I want to say maybe a dark rose, possibly. So very Elita-like in terms of the colours. So it's nice that they've kept some of the colours fairly stock standard. which makes sense if it is true that Earthspark is a quote-unquote continuation of G1. I still don't know how that works, and because I still haven't watched the first however many episodes have been released, it's confusing, but I do recall I think there was actual reference to Generation 1. So, time will tell. Anyway, so we've had a look at your colours, Elita, which, you know, definitely aren't too bad. They're very much you colours. And the pink isn't too bright, where it starts bordering on being a bit garish. Otherwise, you know, general colour composition does work very, very well. So colour's done. We've had a look around the body. Yes, some of the lower legs, and there's a bit of wing kibble. It's not too bad. Like, so far, the kibble has definitely been quite non-intrusive, which is good. There's obviously plenty of other figures where kibble has been much more of an intrusive level. But this isn't too bad. I think the only time it's a bit intrusive is for this particular side because of the weapon. Okay, with the weapon being said, so there is Elita with just her little standard small sidearm, and then apparently flip it over to get the more larger one. Now that does seem a little bit weird. I would have thought it would have done something more like that. Whereas basically extending this top barrel to the base of the small firearm, but maybe not. Apparently this is the actual weapon gimmick. Now, definitely doesn't look too bad, but to be honest, I thought my way looked actually a lot better. Which does make me wonder, how do I put this, how do I reset this back? Okay, so that's the arm reset back. No, it actually can't. So I was just double checking to see if I could actually rotate this around to be at the front, but no, the actual thing does have to rotate around in full. So it does look a little bit weird from certain angles. Like if you look at it this way, it does look very, very weird. Whereas if you look at it from the other side, it's not so bad because you can partly envision there is a hand holding that. So there you go. That is the that is the main little weapon gimmick. Okay, now I'll just reset Elita back into her full robot mode. Okay, articulation. The head is 100% solidly fixed. No articulation whatsoever. Not going to be great for dynamic poses. So, yes, not winning points there. As far as the arms, and I'll use the other arm as opposed to the weapon arm. Can do 360 at the shoulders. It does look a little bit cumbersome. The arm can go all the way out. Obviously, if you do that, the arm can go all the way to the front. And the arm is... it can go to the back, but it will start impacting these little back bits. Now, I'm going to say already, I'm not a huge fan of how the shoulder gets terribly displaced when moving it. Because you just look at that right now and go, that does not look anatomically or aesthetically pleasing. So, shoulders, I'm glad you can move. Your lack of adherence to a bipedal figure does rub me a bit in the wrong way. So we've already gone through the arm. We do have standard elbow bend. There'll be an ever so slightly being able to go to the back. Now, because this is a ball socket, we do have that rotation there in the elbow as well. So that is actually a good thing. It does offset some of this, and I think even up here, there's actually a ball socket in there as well. So technically, I think the idea is not to so much move this component, but just to actually utilize the ball socket to move the arm, in which case it's definitely not so bad, but you do have a little less movement. But the ball socket is definitely quite accommodating. So that's probably the more intended use of the arm movement, as opposed to let's shuffle this entire component around. I mean, you can move it a little bit to get some more range of motion, but I think the idea is to try and leverage everything within this top part in the arm. No waist rotation, which to be honest doesn't surprise me. In terms of the splits, similar to Optimus, she can't do the full splits, but she can come pretty close. Leg can go all the way to the front, and leg can maybe 75 degrees to the back, because it will start impacting things. We already know it can go to the side. Very minor little swivel here at the ball socket at the hip. Nothing in the way of upper leg motion. Now as for the knee bend, it's one of those weird knees. Standard knee bend is pretty much a general 90 degrees, and that's about it. And just go down like so, and similar to Optimus, there's really nothing in the way of the feet. In fact, if you look at that, that is exactly what the lower leg looks like. Hollow and solid as a single piece. Okay, so let's just reset those arms. Okay, so that's pretty much the robot side of Elita-1 looked at. Not terrible, not fantastic either, and so far my expectations haven't actually really been tarnished. I did have a feeling that some would be good, some would be bad, some would be worse. I don't think Elita is in the worst spectrum, but it's just some interesting ways that things have been designed for the robot mode. Now that we've looked at robot mode, time to look at the vehicle mode. So I will do the 15 steps transformation. Hopefully it won't be too bad. If anything, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier than what Optimus was. Not that he was difficult, just shave off a minute or two. Then we can have a look at the alt mode, and I can have some final thoughts about this warrior class Elita-1. And with Elita-1 now in her alt mode. So I'll come back to the transformation. We'll look through the alt mode first. So alt mode from the front, side, the back. Just put those together properly. The other side, bit of an angle on the front, from the top, from the bottom. Surprisingly, it's actually quite neat on the bottom. Colors are still the same from what we saw in the robot mode. Naturally, we see a bit more of the black on the tires now, and a little bit more of the silver, especially for the front windscreen. Now, why the silver wasn't carried through onto the sides, I don't know. Because I will admit, looking at the sides of Elita, yeah, that feels like there's been a little bit of cheapness applied. Or in this case, the lack of application of cheapness. So it would have been nice to have some of that consistency with the side window colors, maybe a little bit more color differentiation on the sides. But as I've said previously, warrior class, what do you expect? It does feel like Elita could actually do with a bit more paint apps just to visually enhance her. Not that you can go too far, because you can only save a warrior class so much. In terms of articulation, the wheels are all freely, generally movable, depending on the surface, depending how everything is well lined up, will dictate how well you get to roll the wheels around. But they're all independent, so technically in a good case scenario, they will all move. And that's pretty much it for the articulation. Now, is there anything else to say about alt mode? Not really. Talked about some of the paintwork, the colors, things like that. We talked about the articulation, so that's pretty much the alt mode for Elita. Now, as for the transformation process, overall it isn't too bad. There's probably one thing in particular that was a little bit fickle, and that's actually more towards the end of the transformation. The rest of it wasn't too bad. The main body is okay. The legs were actually a bit surprising. There's actually a bit more movement in those lower legs than I actually thought. But you do have to work it. So these are all the legs here, but they actually do manage to fold in on themselves. So where you may have thought they didn't do anything else in robot mode other than just have a 90-degree knee bend, you're actually mistaken. They can do a bit more. So it does make me wonder if there's any more flexibility with posing now that I know there's some additional movement in those lower legs. They may not, but I'll find out in the short. So that was one thing that was very interesting. It did actually surprise me. The non-weapon arm was easy to tab in, and speaking of tabbing, there is tabbing, so there's definitely tabbing here with the legs to keep them together, tabbing of this back section into the top of the, I was going to say canopy, but I don't think that's the correct term for a vehicle. Tabbing on the sides as well for the little side wings, and then some more tabbing with these side parts of the arm. So the non-weapon arm, not too bad. I did think some of the tabbing was a little bit messy, which is interesting because I said the same thing about Optimus. I think it could just depend on when you're transforming and putting all the panels in. As for the side with the weapon, at the end I did get there, but I will admit it was just a little bit tricky just getting the orientation right with everything because of the weapon inclusion. I think if I did it a few more times it wouldn't be so bad. There's just a bit of a particular angle that you need to make sure that everything goes into, and thankfully I did find it, but I did pretty much say screw you instruction manual and went back to the old-fashioned way of problem solving. Glad I did manage it, but yeah, this bit was a little bit more confusing than I thought it would be. But other than that, transformation process, quite solid. Transformation we've talked about, alt mode we've talked about, colors we've talked about, lack of colors we've talked about. Bring the manual back. Okay, final thoughts on Warrior Class Elita-1. Starting with the robot mode. Overall, it's not too bad. I would rate Elita a little less in playability than Optimus. I'd probably also rate her less than Optimus in terms of visual paint applications and stuff like that. Definitely, once again, not terrible, but it wasn't overly fantastic either. The weapon gimmick is okay. I think it just visually looks a little bit clunky compared to Optimus, who was a bit more seamless with his Energon axe. The articulation, I feel, has taken a hit, especially with the lack of any head articulation. So you can have a ranged weapon as much as you want, but you will never be able to stare in the same actual angle and direction as it. So visually, that will look weird. The shoulders, once again, I'm not too sure what is happening there articulation wise. I think the point is not to use the actual shoulder, but some of the actual ball socket component. Either way, it's clunky. Other than that, Elita isn't a terrible figure in robot mode, but there's definitely been a reduction in general playability because of how certain things have been done. I think at the end of the day, Elita will just be a case of find a nice pose that looks okay, keep it that way. moving into the alt mode, so the transformation, as I said earlier, it's not too bad. I think the first 12-13 steps are okay, well, probably a few less. It's just the weapon arm that gets a little bit confusing when tabbing it in correctly for the alt mode. But once you do find it, it does tab in quite nicely. It does look quite neat. It's just finding the correct orientations for that arm. The other thing as well is just be mindful of those legs. They actually do have a bit more movement than you would think. As for the alt mode, it's definitely not too bad looking. The pink is a little bit weird. The rose pink seems okay. I think my main criticism would be that, especially on the sides of the vehicle mode, the general absence of any additional paint tabs. Like, I don't actually understand why the side windows do not have any of the silver on it. Yes, I can fix that myself, that's not a problem, but it's also not my place to necessarily improve mass-produced figures. Whether I do it or not, time will tell. I will probably leave it because I suspect I'll just put Elita somewhere never to see her ever again. But still, the vehicle mode isn't too bad. It does come together quite nicely, it does feel quite solid, so it's still not terrible. Like, overall as a figure, Elita is probably within your average to standard grouping category, especially for a warrior class. Sometimes it does feel a bit better than a deluxe class, and I say that because there have been some very weird deluxe classes released over time. So yes, I would say as a final summary, would I recommend Elita-1? Assuming Earthspark has a very reduced / minor figure line, I'd probably say it's actually not terrible. There's some other figures like one-step flips and things like that that I personally would skip, and I did, but they're obviously targeting different niche groups. So as a warrior class figure, she's not terrible, she's not great, but definitely not too bad. I think it's definitely worthwhile grabbing one, mainly because the range will probably be very finite in releases. Alternatively, if you're a big fan of Elita-1, especially now that Elita-1 is actually getting some more figures these days, it's definitely a nice little addition to any Elita-1 figure shrine you could be developing. For those who've actually enjoyed Earthspark, it's definitely not a bad addition either. I think, once again, because Earthspark will probably have a very small and reduced figure line, grabbing the warrior classes and even the deluxe classes probably won't generally be a bad move. In saying that, some of the warrior classes will probably be hit and miss. I'm very dubious about Skywarp. Time will tell how that one goes. With that being said, I will leave the unboxing review there. I think I've made enough points about some of the pros and cons of Elita. Definitely not a bad figure, but yeah. Hopefully this has done some level of information providing to give you a better informed choice. Thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video of Warrior Class Elita-1. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account. Link to that is in the description below. It's also the same handle as the YouTube channel. With that being said, stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video, which could be the video for Skywarp, or maybe something else on the channel. See ya.